back. So today's video is going to be over what you can be doing in the months in preparation for the OTCAS application to open up in the summer. In the past, I've done 3 tips you need to know before applying to OT school, and those are more geared towards things that aren't commonly known. But this video is going to be more specifically over what I wish I would have done or already had once the application opens, so that these are kind of things that are more so busy work that you can just go ahead and get out of the way, so that you will have a smoother application process since you already have them ready to go. So yeah, and be sure to stick around to the end of the video, because I will be kind of going over something exciting that I want to do in the next couple of videos. But yeah, so just make sure you tune in until the end. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about in the months leading up to your OTCAS application opening is to keep observing or to keep working. I always believe keeping your hands busy in terms of your occupational therapy experience is always the best. So I have a couple notes here on my laptop that I'm just going to kind of read off so I don't forget anything. But in terms of observation hours, you definitely want to try to strive for hours in multiple different settings. So me personally, I did hours in outpatient orthopedic clinics. I observed in outpatient pediatric clinics. I know some of my cohort members were able to get into inpatient settings or retirement home settings, you know, things like that, to where it will be able to show your variety of experience as an applicant. So definitely keep that in mind and try to do your research in terms of different settings. You might even be surprised that you find more unconventional settings where, for example, one of my observational clinics that I was in was kind of like a general outpatient, but they both served children and adults. So it was kind of cool because I could bounce back and forth between the different OTs, you know, the adult side of OT and then the pediatric side of OT within one clinic. So it was kind of cool. So definitely do your research and keep observing. Also, I will kind of be going through this a little bit more in depth in a second, but while you're observing, be sure to engage with your therapist if you plan to ask for a letter of recommendation from them. You know, ask questions, even if you think that you may not 100% know exactly what they're doing, that's completely fine. Everyone has a different experience level coming out of undergrad, so I've found that if you just ask questions and go out of your way, it shows the therapist that you are engaged and are kind of passionate about what they're doing, and you know, you're eager to learn yourself. So definitely keep that in mind. Now, on the flip side, if you are working or if you're trying to find a place to work where you can kind of gain both relevant experience as well as keep your hands closely knit to the occupational therapy profession, there are definitely different avenues to do that. I myself have worked as a special education aide, specifically with the inclusion department at the elementary school that I used to work at. So I was interacting with teachers a lot. I was also interacting with the special education teacher as well as the general education teacher. When my kids would come in and get serviced, I was also interacting with their speech therapist, their occupational therapist, their physical therapist, different disciplines where that is definitely applicable to the occupational therapy profession as well, because you are always interacting with different therapists and different disciplines as well. Other professions that you may look into, some of my cohort members were also LVNs, CNAs, rehab techs, PT techs, behavioral techs that work with children on the autism spectrum. Even if you're just a general volunteer who may not even be getting paid necessarily, let's just say you're working at an adult day program, that's still something that is applicable to occupational therapy. But you are also earning money as well. But if you are not in a closely related field, that definitely does not mean that you are automatically counted out. To me, that just means that maybe you have to engage in those observation hours that are more current, even more, just so you can show on your application that, you know, you're not just sitting and doing no current work, or, you know, that your experience is outdated. You know, you always want to be up to date on your current experiences and observations and things like that as well. But another benefit in terms of financial support, if you are able to get something that is closely related to occupational therapy, one thing I wish I would have done in preparation leading up to the application opening is save more than what I was expecting to spend on my OT school applications. Just because different programs require different things, especially if they are wanting supplemental applications. They may also want supplemental transcripts sent to their programs as well. So little small fees like that you will have to spend on extra transcripts or things like that will definitely stack up. So that was one thing that I wish I would have done, was just save more, so that if anything like that were to happen, you would have kind of like a safety net, just in case. So the next thing I want to get into is letters of recommendation, when to ask them, how to go about asking for them, and things like that. So this is definitely a more interesting subject to talk about if you plan to ask for those letters prior to the application opening, and most people do that. However, one thing to keep in mind is that once the application opens, all of your letters of recommendation will be submitted via a link that you will email to your evaluators. So you should never or would never physically have a copy of your letter of recommendation unless your evaluator hands you a physical copy. But there's no way for you on your side of your OTCAS application to like scan in your letter of recommendation. That is all done on your evaluator side, if that makes sense. So with that being said, if you plan on leaving a clinic before the application opens for you to send that link, you will need to somehow stay in contact with your evaluator. So I suggest getting your evaluator's email and another form of contact, whether that be if they're comfortable with them giving you a personal phone number. You know, I know that that may be unprofessional for some, but some therapists, you know, are fine with that. Or if they have a personal email where you can reach them. And I only say that because of this. Therapists can sometimes leave and pursue different opportunities themselves professionally. So if they give you a clinic email and they end up leaving and you have no way of contacting them after they leave, it is hard for you to track them down. Therefore, you could potentially lose an evaluator that could give you that letter of recommendation, if that makes sense. So I suggest always having a second form of contact if possible. And in terms of the timeline of when you should ask, this is just my personal opinion, and this is how I just went about asking for my letters of recommendation. I always strived to establish myself at the clinic first and let them get to know me a little bit before asking for a letter of recommendation. I didn't want to ask too early on, so it looked kind of rushed or pushy, or that I was only there for the letter of recommendation. Because that will definitely show in what your evaluator essentially writes about you. If it's more in depth, if they put more effort into it, if they feel like they really got to know you and you really got to know them. So I like to establish a good rapport with my therapist that I was observing before asking them to write me a letter of recommendation. So what I did is, And if I was leaving a clinic before the application opened, I usually asked them 2 or 3 weeks prior to me leaving. So that would essentially give them enough time. However, if they needed more time, I would give them my number or my email where they could reach me and we could kind of communicate back and forth. And I would keep them updated on when to expect the link to be sent. So there's that method or that avenue one. Or if you're leaving a clinic closer to the date where the application opens, then maybe you can just send them the link as soon as it opens. And I suggest that be one of the first things you do once you're registered through OTCAS, and then all you have to inform them is to look in their spam box or expect an email from OTCAS, and that's where they will submit your letter of recommendation. Okay, the next aspect I want to talk about are your official documents, and that includes your transcripts, your GRE, and your resume. So first, let's start off with your transcripts. I wish I would have had my transcripts ordered and delivered to me early. So let me preface this by saying, whether you plan to pay for the professional entry method where OTCAS enters in all of your transcript information, or if you decide to enter in your information yourself, you will need a copy to either do that or verify what they have input yourself. So no matter what, you will personally need a copy of your transcripts. So if you are already graduated, that should be no problem. You know, just go ahead and get that out of the way, save it to your computer so that you can verify it and have them on hand when that application opens. If you are still in your last year of undergrad, this may be something that you kind of have to wait on until grades are posted, but just know that once they are posted, go ahead and order them just so you have them. Okay, in terms of your GRE scores, I'm going to kind of explain this timeline kind of going backwards because I feel like it's easier to understand, or I hope it's easier to understand. So typically, your GRE scores take around 3 or 4 weeks to post from the time that you've taken your test. So for me, it was about 3 weeks that I had to wait. So let's just say, for example, you have a school's deadline that you need to meet first in October. You need to have taken your test and given them enough time to process your scores. At least I would suggest a month, if not 2 months in advance. So maybe you have to take it in the summer, you know, maybe you have to take it a month before in September. So kind of keep that in mind depending on when that first due date for whatever program you are applying to is requiring your application be turned in. So from there, once you schedule your GRE, whenever you need to take it, you will then have to determine what type of student you are and what or how long of preparation you will need. I personally studied probably like 4 or 5 months just studying alone before my test date, just because I had taken it twice because, like I said, I applied 2 cycles. So I wanted to retake it my second cycle to hopefully improve my scores and make me a more competitive applicant. So if that is something that you need to do, you need to identify what's the earliest due date that you need and then work back from there. And in terms of your resume, this is something that you can already be doing if you haven't already. Things to include in your resume for occupational therapy school, I included my education experience, my volunteer experience, observational experience, and employment history if it's relevant to occupational therapy school. I'm not sure what other applicants did, and I'm not sure if there's a wrong or right way to go about what to put on your resume. I'm just telling you what I personally put on mine. Like, for example, for my employment history, I didn't necessarily put that I worked at Macy's, or that, you know, I worked, I don't know, I've had so many other jobs, but does that make sense? But I was selective of what employment experience that I did put. So I did put that I worked in the special education realm and things like that. So just kind of pick and choose of what you think would be relevant and what would make you a more competitive applicant. Now, I have also gotten a question from one of you guys whether or not to include high school experiences. And that kind of goes with the same token of me saying it depends. If it is not relevant to occupational therapy, then maybe not. So like if you are in student ambassadors or something like that, maybe not. But if you organized maybe an Alzheimer's walk, or if you were the head fundraiser chair and you fundraised money for Autism Speaks or something like that, maybe then that can be one of your minor experiences that you can kind of list. So just kind of pick and choose of what you think would make you a better applicant and then go from there. And if you haven't already, the last thing I want to talk about is building school profiles. This is definitely something that you can do prior or while you wait for the application to open, that will lead you to be more organized through your application process. So what I did was I created a template essentially that on one whole sheet will be dedicated to each program with its name, GRE code, any addresses if you had to send additional transcripts, if they required a supplemental application, and if they required any other personal statements. Also, if they had differing prerequisites or not. So I would list out everything that they required on one page. And then once I had all of my schools that I was interested in gathered, I would then organize them chronologically, keep them in a binder or in a spiral notebook, just so I knew what to do next or what schools I needed to prioritize versus others. With that being said, I decided to go ahead and create my own personal profile that you can download and print out. I will leave it in the description box below, and hopefully it will help you guys be more organized leading up to the application process. This is definitely something that I try to keep simple, clear cut, to where you can use as much space as you need or as little space as you need. I've even tried to list whether or not you need different usernames or if you need to write down your passwords to supplemental applications, because believe me, you have no idea how many mental breakdowns or like, how do you say it? Like, many times I've had to, you know, wait for an email because I forgot a password or something like that. And so it just leaves you nerve-wracking because you're like, I need to do this, or like I need to submit this application or something like that. So it definitely gets really busy and it gets really chaotic, but I'm trying to make it easy for everybody to kind of be organized. And I wish I had this when I was applying. So definitely take a look at that. And if you decide to use it, and if you have any type of social media, find me and tag me, because I would love to see if this is actually helping y'all or not. And also another thing, all of my notes I will organize into a PowerPoint of some sort. I know that many of y'all work, or many of y'all are still in school or are busy and may not be able to always come back and rewatch this video and things like that. So I've also wanted to make it more accessible for you guys to access this information without having to always go back to the video. So I will definitely also leave a link to the PowerPoint in the description box as well. But yeah. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to mention is something that I'm wanting to organize and wanting to do, and I don't know all of the rules or things like that just yet. I will definitely come back on here and make a separate video on it, but I'm wanting to do a giveaway when we reach 100 subscribers, and we're already at 60 right now, I believe, the last time I checked. But it is just so crazy to me, and I just wanted to thank everybody that is interacting in the comments below and asking questions and things like that, because I feel like occupational therapy is such a unique niche of people who look at the holistic parts of a patient and things like that. And I'm not trying to drag any other of the different professions, because we definitely need them too in different aspects. But I feel like occupational therapy, not a lot of people understand, so it's amazing that even 60 people are interested in this profession. So with that being said, I'm wanting to kind of give back and do some type of giveaway. So if you are not subscribed, definitely go ahead and do so now. But I want to know any suggestions that you may have, or any things that you may want in a giveaway, because I know most of y'all are here because of the OT school application videos. So I do want to include some things that are application specific. However, for those of you who are still watching my videos, who may have just gotten into OT school and things like that, and watch my other type of OT school related videos, you may not necessarily need any more of the application side of stuff. But okay, sorry guys, my camera got too hot and was about to overheat. But anyways, so what I was saying, for my other subscribers who may have already gotten into occupational therapy school, I also kind of wanted to keep it more general so that it's not specifically geared towards the application process. But I would like to know any things that, or any ideas that you may have and things like that. But yeah, you can either leave them in the comments below, or I will leave some type of feedback box on my Instagram, and my user handle will be somewhere here or something like that. But yeah, so just to keep that in mind, and look for that video in the future. Okay, but other than that, guys, that is it for the video. I hope these things helped you and get you more organized when the application opens. If you have any more video suggestions or things that you would like to see from me that either aren't specifically related to the OTCAS application or the process, but more geared towards occupational therapy school, any questions that you may have that I can kind of clear up, leave those suggestions down below as well. And yeah, I will talk to you guys in the next video. Sorry. Yeah, I will talk to y'all in the next video. Okay, bye.